Hello Home Slices, it's Kiera with Home Slice Adulting, coming to you with my review for Iyanla Fix My Life, Season 6, Episode 610, titled The Bad Girl of Gospel Part 2, featuring LeAndria Johnson. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I want to say thank you for clicking on this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share this video with someone who you think will like it. If you're interested in my review of The Bad Girl of Gospel Part 1, check out the link below in the description box. Now, let's jump right into this episode. I was hoping that this second half, or the second part of this series with LeAndria, would be a little bit more entertaining. And I guess marginally it was a little bit more entertaining for me than the previous episode. But overall, as a person who likes reality TV, as a person who likes drama, I was hoping there would be a little bit more drama, but that's just me. So I'm, even without the drama, when I watch Iyanla, I like to look for a personal connection to each guest that comes on the show, and try to find if there's something I have in common with this individual, or with this particular story, and see how I can grow and learn from, you know, their story. And I think the reason why I wasn't very entertained by what I saw is that I cannot really identify with LeAndria. I can't identify on substance abuse. I can't identify on her disillusionment with the church. I can't identify. I can't identify on the pressure that she feels from her family to be a preacher, or from, you know, the industry to continue singing gospel even though she doesn't want to. I can't identify with her in almost any facet of her story. And for me, I think that is maybe what's turning me off. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to review it, and that doesn't mean that it's not a good episode for somebody else. It just wasn't really there for me personally. So but because I didn't really dive in my previous review on the first part of LeAndria's story, I'm going to do a little bit more of like an autopsy of this episode. So first we start off with who's who. So we have LeAndria Johnson. She is one of the winners of the Sunday Best competition. For those of you who don't know what that was, BET had like a gospel version of American Idol. It was called Sunday Best. And she won one of the seasons. I remember watching that season back when I was in college. So she won maybe about 10 years ago. And she's also like a preacher as well. She was on a reality show called Preachers of Atlanta or something like that, and she was very controversial. Moving on, we have Phil, who is LeAndria's record company executive and friend. We have Robert, who is her booking agent and friend. We have Terrence, who is LeAndria's younger brother. We have Erika Campbell, who was a judge on Sunday Best when LeAndria won. And we have Kurt Franklin, who, you know, is also a fellow gospel artist, who was the host of Sunday Best when she won as well. So when we dive into this episode, we are back where we left off with Phil, LeAndria, and Iyanla sitting down to have a conversation. And Phil basically lays out his ultimatum for her, that in 90 days she needs to be alcohol free, and she needs to have a new set of surroundings, a new team of people around her, in order to continue working with the record company, or they will terminate her. Because, you know, an alcoholic gospel singer is a liability, okay? So yeah, unless she has her act together, they're gonna have to let her go. You know, as much as Phil likes her as a friend, you know, there is a business part, you know, involved. So Iyanla suggests rehab, and LeAndria thinks that her family would be opposed to rehab because rehab would take her away from her call to be preaching, and LeAndria doesn't want to preach. And I get that, you know, your family can really be hard on you and push you towards doing something that you don't want to do. Like, you know, a lot of people have that experience with their families. Me, not so much. Again, you know, not being able to identify. But Iyanla has her practice telling her family, like, your plans don't work for me. what you want from my life does not work for me. And hopefully, you know, she can really say that to her family. And be okay with it. And so Iyanla brings Terrence in, and Iyanla has Terrence tell LeAndria that he had to do AA too. And LeAndria didn't know that. And, you know, apparently the brother that got killed had a substance abuse issue as well. And then Iyanla said something that I don't think that LeAndria and Terrence liked. But basically she said 3 out of your parents' 5 kids had a substance abuse issue. Apparently, basically they did something wrong. That's the way I think that LeAndria and Terrence received that. But whatever. People don't like you talking about their parents. But moving on, it's the next day of shooting, and LeAndria is 2 hours late. Iyanla does not like tardiness. She's infamous for blowing up the spot on people who are late. Recall Tamar and Tony were late for their episode with the Braxtons in Iyanla. Recall Neffy was late on, I think, the first time that Neffy and Soulflow were on the on Iyanla. There was another episode where there was a black family of entrepreneurs in the medical field where the girl who requested Iyanla come on the show was hours late because she was getting her hair done or something like that. So Iyanla is infamous for not liking tardiness, okay? And LeAndria is tardy. So Iyanla goes to Robert, and she's like, well, according to Phil, the record executive, LeAndria has always had a problem with tardiness. And Robert is like, no, you know, that's not true. Not until the alcohol. And then Robert was like, well, yeah, even before the alcohol, she had a problem. And so, you know, Robert is basically kind of covering for her. He beats around the bush about her tardiness. And Iyanla is like, okay, what the heck? Like, don't you realize that LeAndria's unprofessionalism and tardiness reflects poorly on you because you're supposed to be working for her? Why don't you let her go as a client since you can't get her to show up? Because he was trying to absolve himself from that responsibility, saying that basically LeAndria is a grown woman, and if I can't, you know, there's nothing that I can do within my power to make her get up, to make her show up on time. And Iyanla is like, well, if that's the case, why don't you let her go as a client? If you can't do your job, then let her go as a client. I think Iyanla had a bit of an agenda, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So while they're having this conversation, LeAndria walks in late and has basically no explanation. None. Well, excuses don't explain and explanations don't excuse, but LeAndria didn't even make up any reason why she showed up late. So I just don't get it. But anyways, Iyanla, interestingly enough, called her out on it. You know, we know that she was going to call her out on it, but she made a really good point that LeAndria's career, or LeAndria's reputation as the bad girl of gospel, is not just because of the alcohol. It's not just because of the rants on Periscope. It's because she's unprofessional. If you make it a part of who you are to show up late, to inconvenience everybody else, it's showing that you are not professional. And your career is sliding downhill because of this, in addition to all the other issues that you have. So don't try to just blame this on, you know, F the church and, you know, oh, I've been drinking. No, you're unprofessional. And according to Robert, you were unprofessional before the drinking started. So you need to get that right, because that's about character and integrity. And once you get your character and integrity right and show up on time, then people have more respect for you in the industry. So I like that Iyanla used her own personal experience with always being late and, you know, that hurting her career and her reputation, and saying once you get that right, once you get the underlying issues right, and you start showing up on time and your professionalism goes up and your reputation, you know, recovers, and now you have a more lucrative career, you know. But that's in any industry. It seems like, and LeAndria says she doesn't want to be a gospel singer anymore, which is okay. But regardless of what LeAndria does, whether she sings gospel music or a different type of music, or she stops singing professionally altogether, being professional is a part of any job. So I thought that was a really good lesson for LeAndria to learn. So like I said, LeAndria says she doesn't want to sing gospel music, and Robert don't even believe her, really. And he's like, or he only hears what he wants to hear. And Iyanla basically says to LeAndria, fire Robert, okay? He's not serving you. She says that she's an objective third party, and I don't really believe that when it comes to Robert. But Iyanla says that by not telling LeAndria the truth, he stops her from being able to make the proper corrections and changes in her life. And Iyanla says that when LeAndria shows up as broken, when she shows up not in her glory and not in her greatness, that she allows people to treat her as if she's broken. They don't tell her the truth. They handle her with kitty gloves, and it's not helpful. And I thought that was a really good point. I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from this episode, is when you don't show up as a person who is whole, then you allow people to not treat you as being whole. You don't open the door for people to give you constructive criticism. You don't open the door for them to tell you, hey girl, you need to cut back on the drinking. Hey girl, you need to go to rehab. Hey girl, you need to show up on time or this will happen. And she just has a bunch of people around her that enable her, and she needs to fix the brokenness inside of her so that she can be whole enough to allow people to give her those type of critiques and to love her in a way that's like tough. To be able to take the tough love. So I thought that was a wonderful point. Now back to Iyanla having an agenda. Iyanla says that she feels that Robert is an enabler, which all the people around her are enablers, but that Robert is like the worst kind. That Robert makes excuses for LeAndria, and it's while I agree with Iyanla, it came off to me that Iyanla had an agenda to get LeAndria to see that Robert was no good for her. But moving on. So Iyanla tells Robert, to talk to LeAndria, and he, of course, beats around the bush again. And Iyanla was like, well, tell her how you kept her from hitting rock bottom because you forgot that God made the rock. And I was like, go ahead, Iyanla. Basically, she's getting him to admit that he has been an enabler. And, Iyanla says that she's invested in her healing, not her feelings. And I thought that was good, too. Moving on. We have Iyanla talking to LeAndria alone. And LeAndria takes a long time in a very roundabout way to say that she is addicted to alcohol, which would make her an alcoholic. So Iyanla has her read a definition of a high-functioning alcoholic. And, LeAndria says that if that description sounded like herself. So Iyanla brings out this iPad or whatever that has a message from Kirk Franklin. He's encouraging, and apparently he couldn't be there because he had a prior engagement. But Iyanla brought up that by saying F the church and by saying that religion is BS, that she forgets about the people for whom religion works. And I thought that was interesting as well. Saying things like that are inflammatory. They are offensive. And for a lot of people, they look to religion to help better their lives. And, as a person who grew up in the church and a person who's grown up in that belief system, I get that. It's offensive to, I'm personally not offended, personally, but it is offensive to people who really take their religion seriously to say, if the church, religion is BS, and, there are things wrong in the church, and, it's not invalidating her critique of the church, but it's how can she minister to people when she feels like the thing that they believe in is BS? And Iyanla was like, you need to figure out how to critique without condemning, without the talking about the church hurt. You know, there's church hurt, there's spiritual abuse, there's hypocrisy in the pulpit, but you have to deliver your message differently, and you get to choose your spiritual foundation. Now, she gives her a plate of uncooked food, and LeAndria's response is like, what the hell is this? And Iyanla said something really interesting, again, that I felt applied more personally to me than other situations, than other things in this episode. And so she said, there's an African saying that if you eat well, you speak well. And she basically said that LeAndria, for the past 10 years, has eaten well, has gotten Grammys, has gotten paid off of people, religious people, who have put money into her pocket for her performances, to buy her albums, to, you know, to give her the lifestyle that she has. And for her to basically bite the hand that feeds her and to say the things that you believe in, you know, you shouldn't be believing in, or the things that you believe in are BS. The things that you believe in, you know, is crazy. For her to say that, it's not right. For her to have benefited so much off of church people and then to turn around and say everything you believe in is crap, it's just not good. It's incongruent, and again, it contributes to her reputation as the bad girl of gospel. So moving on, they talk about Robert, and LeAndria admits that Robert has benefited by being tied to her name and that he's eaten off of her. And you know, basically the reason why he has done that, or the reason why he's there, is because Robert lets her get away with stuff. When you have a problem, you don't want to be around people who will call you out on it. The reason why LeAndria has let Robert eat off of her is because he allows her to stay the same. He doesn't challenge the fact that she has a problem. So anyways, again, Iyanla is trying to give her that hint that, like, you need to let Robert go. But anyways, Iyanla said that once you get people in your life that hold you accountable, and get people in your life who are willing to bring things to the table instead of eating off of your plate. So hopefully she heeds that, but I don't know that LeAndria will. So Iyanla brings up rehab again. Now, apparently, at some point, LeAndria said to Iyanla that the only reason she isn't drinking because she has that ankle monitor on. And she thinks she's not ready and that she's moving too fast. So next we see Erika Campbell, who again was a judge on Sunday Best when LeAndria won, and who has known her for 10 years and also is a fellow gospel artist. And so Iyanla and Erika kind of talk for a while. And because Erika is a fellow gospel artist, she can have, she has more of a personal relationship and more of a, like, an industry relationship. So she gets where LeAndria is coming from. So, Erika had an interesting viewpoint, like, because there are things about being a gospel artist that Erika brought up that I had never really considered. And so she said that gospel artists get paid the least in the industry, which is something that I knew but I guess hadn't thought about. And then they get asked to work for free. And it's like, talk about a guilt trip. Can you imagine how easy it is for a religious organization or whoever to be like, oh, you work for the Lord, your reward is in heaven, come sing for us for free? No, these people have families. These people have a crew of people, or musicians, or, you know, managers that need to get paid. Just because somebody works for the Lord doesn't mean you can ask them to work for free. So that was something, again, that I really hadn't considered. But Erika thinks that LeAndria's connection with God is off. And, you know, it probably is. LeAndria joins the conversation, and Erika, you know, can really identify with her and knows the issues. And LeAndria, you know, is mad at the people in the church, you know, they determine, and not God himself. So Erika came, you know, to the show to be supportive. And now LeAndria admits that she's an alcoholic to Erika. And Erika is like, you know, you can get past this. You know, you can get through this. And so Iyanla says, I have set it up so you can have 30 days in rehab. They will hold a bed for you for 3 days under the conditions that you go to an AA meeting for the next 2 days. So right now she's testing LeAndria's level of commitment, and LeAndria agrees. So they say a prayer for LeAndria. It's Erika, Iyanla, and 2 of the other like therapists that work for the show as well. And they lay hands on her, and for the first time, it feels like LeAndria is actually like really, really emotional. We saw her cry a little bit throughout the show, but she just comes off as very unaffected, and almost like her mind was somewhere else for the rest of the show. Like, you know how Iyanla calls women like neck down dead? That kind of seemed like what LeAndria was to me, and this was the first time it felt like she was really feeling it this time around. And so this is like the first real outpouring of emotion that we see, and she says that she doesn't want to drink anymore, and Iyanla escorts her to her, you know, first AA meeting, and LeAndria feels like this is her moment, and it definitely is. So in the end, LeAndria does go to rehab, we find out, and that she is nervous but optimistic, and I'm happy for her. Again, I didn't find this episode particularly entertaining, but I am happy for her that she is getting help. I do think she has an incredible talent, that she has an incredible voice, but like more important than that, she has to figure out what she really wants to do with her life. And, you know, being involved in preaching and gospel music clearly is not it. And so I just, you know, hope and pray that she finds whatever she wants to do with her life, and that she's great at it, and that she's successful, and that she continues to fight against having a substance abuse issue. So thank you guys for watching. I've been debating whether or not I want to start reviewing Family or Fiance, because it's really interesting to me as a person who's been in a long-term relationship and who's kind of been talking about marriage, to kind of take a look at you know, the issues that people have when their families are about to merge together. So I've definitely been watching it, but I don't know that I'll review it. So yeah, maybe I'll do like quick Instagram reviews on Family or Fiance. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and to share this with somebody who you think will like it. Peace out, home slices.